On her best friend's 22nd birthday, she was harassed by a drunk man. As a black belt in Taekwondo, I accidentally killed a drunk man while trying to protect her. But in court, she refused to testify on my behalf. I was sentenced to 3 years in prison for manslaughter. After I got out of prison, I found out that my best friend had already married my boyfriend. He also has a daughter who is a little over 2 years old. They also tried to arrange for me to marry my best friend's divorced, abusive older brother. The next time I opened my eyes, I was back on my best friend's 22nd birthday. Just a second ago, I'd been in a car accident because I'd been distracted. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back in my room. When I saw that the time on my phone had indeed gone back 3 years, I realized I had truly returned to the day of Fong Li's 22nd birthday. I looked at myself in the mirror. I had gone to great lengths to get dressed up for the birthday party of my best friend, whom I've known since middle school. There are messages from 2 people on my phone. One of them was Fong Li. She sent me a location and a voice message. When I tapped on it, I heard her sweet, syrupy voice. Honey, I made a reservation at this restaurant, so make sure you don't go to the wrong one. Another one is my boyfriend, Lin Yanhua. He sent me a message. Yuan Qing, are you ready? I'm almost at the bottom of your building. I rolled my eyes inwardly. In my previous life, I thought they didn't have much in common at the time, having heard that a best friend is like a future mother-in-law. I made a point of chipping in some extra money and bought Fong Li an expensive necklace in Lin Yanhua's name. I hope my best friend and my boyfriend get along well. Who would have thought that by the time I got out of prison after serving 3 years, their child would already be over 2 years old. Based on the timeline, the child must have been conceived around that time. I fought the urge to give them both a good scolding and sent Fong Li a message. Honey, I just accidentally sprained my ankle, so I have to go to the hospital right now. I'm so sorry I'll have to miss your birthday, but I'll definitely make it up to you later. My family is better off than Fong Li's, and over the years she's taken full advantage of me. So on the surface she's always been completely submissive to me. She sent me a bunch of concerned voice messages, but I didn't play them. I was afraid that hearing her sickly sweet voice would make me throw up. I sent another message to Lin Yanhua. I'm not feeling well. You go ahead on your own. Before he could reply, I set his WeChat to do not disturb. I glanced back at the gifts on the bed. The necklace was meant to be a gift from Lin Yanhua, and I had also bought her a purse as a gift from me. Neither of them is my style, so I took the 2 items with me and went to return them. After returning the item and leaving the luxury store, I casually opened my Moments feed and saw a post by Fong Li. She was wearing a white princess dress, holding a huge bouquet of flowers, and surrounded by gifts just like a little princess. And my Lin Yanhua was standing right next to Fong Li, leaning slightly toward her. At first glance, anyone who didn't know better would have thought they were a couple. What a piece of junk. I've known Fong Li since middle school. She came from an ordinary family, and while her classmates all looked scruffy and unkempt, she stood out with her slender, fair complexion and soft, delicate voice. I don't know how many boys' hearts she captured, but where there are admirers, there are also haters. That day after school, she was cornered in an alley by a group of delinquent girls. The reason is simple. The boy the little delinquent has a crush on likes Fong Li. I was in poor health as a child, so my parents sent me to take Taekwondo lessons. I had originally just wanted to get in shape, but it turned out I had an extraordinary talent for Itavan at such a young age. There weren't many opponents who could match me, so when I saw Fong Li being bullied, I stepped in and chased those few troublemaking girls away in just a few moves. Before those little troublemakers ran off, they shouted at me, Jiang Yuan Qing, I'm definitely not going to let you off the hook. With my hands on my hips, I shouted at them, go ahead, if you dare. My brother is Shintingxi from the high school division. I turned around and reached out to help Fong Li, whose face was streaked with tears, to her feet. After that, despite our completely different personalities, she and I became close friends. She later asked me why I have a different last name than my brother. I bit down on the straw of my yogurt and looked up at Shintingxi, who was at the top of the honor roll. Not knowing how to talk to her, Shintingsi was living with us because both her parents had passed away. Seeing me hesitate, Fongli gave me a playful smile. I don't get involved in the private affairs of wealthy families. But she paused for a moment, then stepped forward and pointed at Shintingsi's photo. You don't mind if I go after your brother, do you? I didn't understand it before, but after starting over in this new life, I realized that. Ever since that time, Fongli seemed to have been deliberately trying to take my things. She'll borrow the clothes I just bought to wear. She'll pick up my books to read in her free time. My friend shall get to know her, too. My brother's going after him, too. I was too young back then. I couldn't tell the difference between a person and a dog. When I found out that Fongli was going to pursue Shintingsi, I went out of my way to talk to Shintingsi about it. After hearing this, Shintingsi looked up and glanced at me. Jiang Yuan Qing. Where's your ID? I was a little confused, but I still pulled my ID out of my bag. Here it is. Shintingsi snorted derisively. Then please take a good look at how old you are right now. At your age. Dating anyone over the next 3 years would be considered early dating. Shintingsi is 3 years older than me. I was in 9th grade, and he was in 12th grade. He'd been living with us since he was 10, and at first, I really enjoyed playing with him. Having a handsome older brother is something every girl can be proud of. But the older I get, the more I feel that Shintingsi is just a block of wood. He was calm and level-headed, as crisp as autumn lake water, even as a teenager. He was composed and reserved, never letting his emotions show. Even my dad praises him, saying he's sure to go far in the future. But Shintingsi, who was always so calm, had tears welling up in his eyes countless times in my previous life after I was imprisoned. Maybe I acted like such a fool before, always going along with Fongli's wishes. Since I, the sucker, suddenly decided not to go to her birthday party this time. The gifts she posted online didn't look as fancy as the ones from before. So not long after she posted on her moments, she called me on video, but I didn't answer. I glanced at the time. At this hour, they must have already left the restaurant where they were eating and moved on to their second stop, a karaoke bar. In my previous life, I was the one who paid for the KTV. By the time we left the KTV, it was already very late. Our other friends got into their cars one by one and drove off. But Fongli, who was standing by the roadside waiting for a ride, was suddenly pounced on and hugged by a drunk man, who groped her all over with his hands and feet. After Lin Yanhua and I drove the car out, we saw that Fongli's clothes had already been somewhat disheveled from being tugged at. The area was fairly secluded, and the security guards couldn't see us. There were a few of the drunkard's cronies standing nearby, snickering lewdly, when I saw my friend being bullied. I immediately got out of the car and ran over. After I pulled Fongli away, that drunk guy still tried to attack me. I used to practice taekwondo, so I just threw him to the ground with a shoulder throw. A few other drunks saw what happened and rushed over to help. I was having a hard time dealing with 3 or 4 drunks, but Lin Yanhua acted as if he hadn't seen a thing, hiding in the car and refusing to get out. So, in the midst of the scuffle, I was so eager to break free that I lost control of my strength and kicked one of them to the ground. The back of his head hit the floor, and he lost consciousness. A passerby called the police, and all of us were taken to the police station. In the end, it turned out that the drunk man had died from severe head trauma. My family hired the best lawyer for me, but there were no security cameras there. So aside from us and that group of drunks, there were no other witnesses. I was just acting in self-defense. But in court, Fong Liao, close friend I'd always treated with sincerity, said right there in open court. At that point, the drunk guy had stopped bothering me. Jiang Yuanqing had just misread the situation and thought I was being picked on. Even though our family later spent a fortune, I was still sentenced to 3 years in prison. My parents' hair turned white overnight, and Shintingsi, who was usually so calm and composed, looked at me with tears welling up in his eyes. Yuan, don't be afraid. Big brother will stay with you. Later, I was sent to prison, and Fongli came to visit me. She was crying so hard her tears streamed down her face like rain on pear blossoms. She looked so pitiful. as if she were the one who had suffered the greatest injustice. "I'm sorry, Yuan. I was so scared," just as she had done countless times before after making mistakes. She gave me that pitiful look. "You'll forgive me, right?" Forgive. I could just tear her to pieces. I spent 3 years in prison, and it took me a full 3 years to stop hating her so much. But when I got out of prison, I found out that my best friend, Fong Li, had already married my boyfriend, Lin Yanhua, and they even had a child who was a little over 2 years old. Do you hate it? Hate. Do you resent it? Gore. So, if I were to live my life over again, I would stand on the sidelines and watch as fate tears them apart. I returned home and waited quietly for that moment to arrive. At 1:30 a.m., I received a call from Lin Yanhua. I figured out what was going on, so I answered the phone. On the other end, Lin Yanhua's voice was breathless, and there was some background noise. His tone was somewhat urgent. "Yuan Qing, please come to the police station. Something's happened to Fong Li. The show is about to begin." When I arrived, the police station was in complete chaos. Cries, shouts, the police officer's commands, and the sound of sirens from outside all mingled together. At other times, I find this background noise quite annoying, but at that moment, it sounded to me like the sweetest music in the world. With this background music playing, it felt as if I had been completely reborn. I have completely left the tragedy of my past life behind and started a new life for myself. Wearing my little leather shoes and carrying my little bag, I made my way through the crowd and came to stand in front of Lin Yanhua. He looked a mess, with a cut on the corner of his mouth and his clothes torn. He had his head down, but when he heard my footsteps, he looked Yupan. The first thing he said was, "Why aren't you going to Fong Li's birthday party today?" I paused. How come I hadn't noticed before that Lin Yanhua was so quick to call people out? I tilted my head and looked at him. Would it make any difference if I went? In my previous life, when I saw Fong Li being molested, my first instinct was to rush over and help her. Meanwhile, Lin Yanhua's boyfriend, the one who had an affair with Fong Li, kept hiding in the car and wouldn't get out. He later explained that he had called the police from his car at the time. But the fact is, it was a passerby who actually called the police. Perhaps my words had angered him. He jumped to his feet, and the look in his eyes as he stared at me was particularly fierce. "Aren't you a black belt in Taekwondo? When you went out with Fong Li before, wasn't it you who chased those thugs away? If you went this time, if I go this time, I'll be the one who gets harassed, molested, and assaulted. Then you won't have to feel bad, right?" Lin Yanhua was taken aback, and his earlier arrogance subsided considerably. He looked at me in disbelief. You know, don't you?" I smiled faintly. "What do you think?" I didn't want to deal with Lin Yanhua anymore, so I turned around and followed the female officer to find Fong Li. She looked far worse off than Lin Yanhua. Her clothes had been completely torn to shreds, and the female police officer had found some other clothes to cover her with. She was sitting on the bed, curled up in a ball, her elaborate curls, which had cost a fortune, now a complete mess. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and because her skin was so fair, even the slightest mark on her body stood out clearly. She lowered her head and shed a tear, looking so pitiful that anyone would feel sorry for her. The female police officer explained to me that after Fong Li and her friends left the KTV, they encountered some drunken men who sexually harassed Fong Li. Lin Yanhua only went over to help after Fong Li had been dragged into an alley and she had called the police and security. Lin Yanhua grabbed a brick and smashed it right into the man's head. The drunk is still lying in the hospital's ICU, and his condition remains uncertain. After the female officer finished speaking, Fong Li looked up at me, her tone unusually soft. "Yuan Qing." But instead of walking up to her and hugging her like I used to, I just stood there. She looked at me, somewhat puzzled. The policewoman sensed that something was off and, thinking we had something to discuss, quietly stepped out. "Why are you standing so far away?" Fong Li asked me. I said calmly, "I just came by to check on you. There's nothing I can do to help, now that I know you're all right." I'm going home, it's already very late. I was pretty tactful about it. I'm just here to have a laugh. Fong Li's expression changed, revealing a mix of disbelief and a hint of reproach. Yuan Qing. What do you mean? Aren't we friends? I'm in this state. So why are you being so cold? I never thought you'd be this kind of person. I never thought you'd be this kind of person. I interrupted her, speaking bluntly. I've treated you as a friend, but have you ever treated me as a true friend? Fong Li paused. What do you mean? The literal meaning. I don't want to get too involved with them. I told you. I just came here to laugh at them. In my past life, this night was my worst nightmare. After I accidentally pushed someone to the ground, my parents rushed over. My mother, who had lived most of her life with grace and dignity, collapsed to the ground and wept uncontrollably upon hearing that I might go to prison. She and my father both went gray overnight. I was being detained by the police, and my parents were outside, holding each other and weeping. But Fong Lithe girl I had helped just stood in the corner the whole time, refusing to offer my parents even a word of comfort. Lin Yanhua, meanwhile, had been standing right beside Fong Li the whole time. After offering a few perfunctory words of comfort to my parents, he left with Fong Li. Looking back now, it seems they didn't go back to school that night. Instead, they checked into a hotel room, and I ended up being the biggest scapegoat. Tonight, after coming back to life, I looked at the group chat on my phone, which included me, Shin Tingxi, and my parents, and saw that before going to bed, my parents had posted photos of themselves dining out, their faces beaming with happiness. In this life, I will hold on tightly to the happiness that is mine. As I turned to leave the police station, Fong Li and Lin Yanhua's parents had just arrived, and I passed them by. They all turned to look at me. Perhaps they wanted to say something to me, but the police urged them on. So they followed the officers anyway. I stood outside the police station and looked back at the chaotic scene inside. For the pain I suffered in my past life, I will make them pay 1,000-fold in this one. The news that Fong Li had been dragged into an alley by a drunk man spread throughout the entire school that very evening. The next day, as I was heading to class, I heard a few girls next to me talking about something. Curious, I turned my head and asked, "What are you guys looking at?" The girls exchanged glances, still too afraid to speak. I thought for a moment. It's about Fong Li, isn't it? The girls' expressions changed, and they nodded. One of the girls, who was on good terms with me, sat down next to me with her phone in hand. Yuan Qing, I know you're close with Fong Li, and you might get upset if you saw this video, which is why we didn't dare show it to you. What video? The girl held up her phone for me to see. The video had been secretly recorded from upstairs at the same KTV from last night. It showed Fong Li being dragged into an alley by those drunken men. Her white princess dress had been torn to shreds and thrown out. The video was a bit blurry, so it was hard to make out exactly what happened. But the girl's screams and the drunk man's mocking laughter in the video were enough to make it clear exactly what had happened. After reading it, I furrowed my brow slightly. Although I do want to get back at Fong Li and Lin Yanhua, I really hate people who post videos of girls being assaulted. Noticing the look on my face, the girl immediately paused the video. We don't know who posted it either. It was all over the place last night. It was Fong Li's birthday yesterday. You were probably there too. It's common knowledge that Fong Li and I are close. Fong Li is the most popular girl in the art department. Her stunning looks have made her a sensation across the entire campus, and many rich kids are vying for her attention, while she herself changes boyfriends quite frequently. On top of that, she has a haughty personality and has long since offended quite a few people. Now that this video has come out, all those who have always disliked her have started kicking her while she's down. I lowered my gaze. I wasn't there, so I'm not really sure what happened. Although I despise the people who spread videos of girls being assaulted, I still remember what happened to me in my previous life because of Fong Li. I will never forgive her. After thinking it over, I said to the girls, "From now on, you don't need to worry about me when it comes to Fong Li. I am no longer involved with her." Once close friends, they've now fallen out, and the story behind it is sure to keep them talking for quite some time. Neither Lin Yanhua nor Fong Li came to school that day. After I sent Lin Yanhua a text breaking up with him, I immediately blocked both of them on WeChat. Because knowing them as I do, I knew they'd keep bothering me afterward. It's just that I've been way too naive all these years and have given them way too many favors. After finishing my afternoon classes, I went home for a bit. In my previous life, I spent 3 years in prison. My parents wept day and night, and our family business went downhill rapidly. It was all kept afloat by Shintingsi. Even though I had already texted them before coming home to let them know I'd be back for dinner tonight, I still felt nervous when I reached the door. After psyching myself up, I finally rang the doorbell. Our home is a spacious, open-plan apartment with a view of the river. As soon as I opened the door, I saw our housekeeper busy preparing dinner. Dad was sitting in the living room watching the news, and when Mom saw me at the door, the corners of her eyes crinkled with a smile. "It's our Yuan who's back." I thought I had mentally prepared myself enough so that I wouldn't let my emotions show anymore. But when I saw such a heartwarming scene, when I saw this gentle mother, her eyes sparkling, standing right in front of me, just couldn't hold back. And tears as big as beans began to roll down my cheeks. As soon as Mom saw me crying, she immediately panicked. "Oh my, what's going on? Did something happen at school?" In their eyes, I had only been away at school for 2 days before coming back. But to me, it was the first time in 3 whole years that I had once again experienced the warmth of home. At the dinner table, my parents kept serving food into my bowl. As we were chatting, my parents suddenly brought up Shintingsi. "By the way, your brother is coming back soon, too." My hands stopped mid-bite. After college, Shintingsi chose to study abroad, and he even started a company with some of his international classmates. According to my dad, it's doing quite well. In my previous life, he was probably about to return to China around this time. But because something happened to me, he rushed back regardless of the consequences, only to arrive just in time to see me sentenced to prison in court. Nothing happened to me this time, and since he's sticking to the plan, he'll probably be back within the next half a month. Actually, in my previous life, my relationship with Shintingsi was a bit complicated. It was during my sophomore year that Lin Yanhua started pursuing me, and we ended up dating. Once, while we were out shopping, Shintingsi happened to run into us. With a stern look on his face, he pulled me aside and told me I wasn't allowed to date. I just assumed he was trying to act like an elder and give me some advice, which annoyed me a little. "You used to say that dating before age 18 is too young, but I'm almost 20 now. Why are you telling me what to do? I'm your brother. You're not my real brother." Because of that argument, I started avoiding him. He was 3 years older than me, and by then he had already received an acceptance letter from a university abroad. He was so busy every day that he left early and came home late. Even if I happened to run into him, I'd turn away from him, fuming. Even after he actually left the country, I was still sulking at him for not letting me date Lin Yanhua. Little did I know that the next time we met, I would be about to go to prison. When I think back to my previous life, how he ran around doing everything for me even though he was usually so neat and had a cleanliness obsession, ended up with a scruffy beard, and his handsome, almond-shaped eyes were bloodshot. He may not be my biological brother, but he's just like one. So after dinner, I went back to my room, took out my phone, and saw that our chat history had stopped more than 2 years ago, right around the time he left for abroad. I took out my phone, wondering what I should text him to show I was wrong and apologize. But I accidentally tapped the voice call button. My hand slipped, and my phone fell to the ground. I scrambled to pick it up and realized the other person had already answered the call. A crisp, clear male voice rang out. "Hello." I froze, unable to speak. Shintingsi called out again. "Jiang Yuan Qing." Hearing that familiar voice, my throat tightened, and by the time I spoke again, my voice had changed. "I'm here." He seemed to sense the tremor in my voice. His tone was no longer as cold as before, as if ripples had finally begun to form on the surface of a calm lake. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" I sniffed and looked at the photo on my desk, one of him and me taken when we were kids. I looked into the camera, and a little boy was looking back at me, so I spoke up, conveying the truest words of my heart across the entire Pacific Ocean and several time zones. Shin Tingxi, I miss you. After I finished speaking, I was so embarrassed that I tossed my phone aside. Shin Tingxi's parents and my parents have been close friends for generations. Back when my parents' business failed, all our relatives and friends turned their backs on us and refused to lend a helping hand, but it was Shin Tingxi's parents who came to my parents' rescue. When Shin Tingxi was 40, his parents' business ran into trouble, and they died in a car accident. It was my parents who rushed to the Shin family's villa and brought Shin Tingxi back from the debt collectors. When he first came to live with us, Shin Tingxi refused to speak or eat, and my parents didn't know what to do with him. It was only after I kept pestering him and coaxing him that he was finally willing to speak. However, the very first thing he said to me was, "Could you please be a little quieter?" When I was little, I called him Big Brother. But after I grew up and found out we didn't have the same parents, I'd call him Big Brother when I was happy and use his full name when I was upset. Back in high school, when everyone else was crushing on the boys at school, I was embarrassingly blushing over Shin Tingxi, but once I realized what I'd done, I slapped myself across the face without hesitation. Jiang Yuanqing, have you no shame? He's living under your roof out of sheer necessity, and yet you've got your eyes on him. Later, after studying biology, I came to understand that it's normal to develop an interest in the opposite sex during puberty. I gradually came to terms with it, and after staring at him for a while, I'd suddenly compliment him. "Bro, you're so handsome." All in all, if it weren't for Lin Yanhua, my relationship with Shin Tingxi would have remained good. For several days after that, neither Fongli nor Lin Yanhua came to school, but rumors about them were already running rampant. Fongli is usually very flamboyant in her actions, and now that she's facing these problems, the people she used to bully are starting to gloat. When I walked into the classroom, everyone was whispering. After I entered, they started exchanging glances, and then gradually fell silent. After I sat down, a boy in the row in front of Masamion I usually get along with turned around to look at me. "Yuan Qing, I heard you and Fongli had a falling out." I let out a soft "m." He asked again, "Why?" I couldn't explain to them just how badly Fongli had treated me in my past life. While I was still hesitating, the girl next to me said, "What else could it be? It's because you've seen Fongli for who she really is." That one sentence seemed to get everyone talking, one after another. They shared their own experiences and observations about the pair. I share a dorm with Yuan Qing, so I'm the best person to talk about this. Whenever she had a date, she'd come over to borrow Yuan Qing's clothes and bags, but I've never seen her return them. When she did bring them back, they either smelled like hot pot or had stains on them. It's not just clothes and bags, it's skincare products, too. Yuan Qing is such a kind person. She always buys 2 of everything when she buys skincare. She takes them as if it's her right. But I've never seen her buy anything for Yuan Qing. As for Fongli, the moment I laid eyes on her, I thought she was incredibly scheming. On the surface, she's all smiles and gentle with everyone. But who knows what she's really like behind their backs. There's one more thing I don't know if you've noticed, but Fongli is the kind of person who's always stealing other people's stuff. One by one, everyone chimed in, bringing up all the little things that had bothered me about Fongli over the years. That's just how people are. All those little details you didn't notice before will suddenly come to a head at a certain point. Ever since we met in middle school, I've always seen Fongli as someone who needed help, so I've looked out for her a lot. Her family wasn't well off, but she was a bit vain, so whenever I bought skincare products for myself, I'd get her a set too. Whenever we go shopping, I'm the one who always picks up the tab. I've gotten used to it over the years, but now that everyone's brought it up, I've realized how unequal the situation is. In my friendship with Fongli, I've always been the one giving, while Fongli has always been the one taking. A grain of rice breeds gratitude, but a bushel of rice breeds resentment. At some point, Fongli began to harbor hatred toward me and started trying to take what was mine. At first, she said she wanted to pursue Shin Tingxi, But when that didn't work out, she changed her tune and said she'd like to have an older brother like him. So on the weekend, I brought her home to hang out with us. Shintingsi was reading in his study, and she kept running over to bother him. She kept calling Shintingsi brother at every turn. At that time, Shintingsi had just finished his college entrance exams and was at home reviewing material for his major when he heard Fongli call out to him. He looked up coldly and gave her a brief glance. As far as I remember, I only have one younger sister. Then, ignoring Fongli, who was standing there frozen in embarrassment, he simply slung his backpack over his shoulder and walked out the door. Back then, I even accused Shintingsi of being rude and cold. Looking back now, Shintingsi was able to spot a green tea even at such a young age. On the 5th day after the incident, I ran into Lin Yanhua at the entrance to the dorm. He was wearing a baseball cap and a mask. It seemed he was aware that he had recently been in the spotlight. At first I didn't notice, until I walked up to him and he suddenly grabbed my arm, which startled me. He made a shushing gesture. "It's me." I twitched my lips. "It's precisely because it's you that I called." Someone walking by glanced in our direction, and Lin Yanhua quickly looked down, afraid of being recognized. "Can we find a place where there aren't many people?" Having learned my lesson from my past life, I'm now terrified that he'll take me somewhere deserted and knock me out with a club. I chuckled and pushed his hand away. "No, thanks." Before blocking him, I was afraid he wouldn't understand what I meant, so I had already sent him a message saying I wanted to break up with him. I thought he'd figure it out on his own, and I didn't feel like explaining it in such detail. But I never expected him to actually have the nerve to show up at my door. Seeing that I was about to leave, he grabbed my arm again. "Yuan Qing, you can't just break up with me on a whim. I know it was wrong of us to do what we did with Fongli, but you can't blame me entirely either. We were arguing at the time, and Fongli was always messaging me that's why I acted that way. Now that I'm going through a tough time, you can't just turn your back on me." Sure enough, when a man cheats, his first reaction isn't to think he's in the wrong, but to blame others. I was so furious I burst out laughing. I turned to look at him, my face full of disgust. "Lin Yanhua, how come I never realized before just how shameless you are?" I struggled to walk away. But I didn't expect Lin Yanhua to give up and just drag me out. Many people around them glanced their way, but no one stepped forward to help. Just as I was about to use my taekwondo skills, a tall, slender figure walked up beside me. He grabbed my hand, then locked onto Lin Yanhua's wrist. With a gentle squeeze, Lin Yanhua winced in pain and let go of my wrist. He shielded me behind him, and when I looked up, I saw his profile. It's Shintingsi. He stared intently at Lin Yanhua. "I warned you more than 2 years ago not to get close to her, didn't I?" Shintingsi had such a commanding presence, and with everyone around him pointing and whispering, Lin Yanhua had no choice but to run off like a scared little turtle. Shintingsi turned his head and met my gaze as I looked up at him. "It's gotten cooler these past few days, and he looks absolutely dashing in his long black trench coat." I was still completely captivated by his good looks when, the very next second, he tapped my forehead with his knuckles. "Is dating fun?" I pressed my hand to my forehead and glared at him. This Shintingsi sure holds a grudge. Shintingsi said he'd take me home for dinner. I got in the car with him, only to discover that the driver was one of his high school classmates they'd often brought me along to their get-togethers before. As soon as his classmate saw me, he started winking at me. "Wow, little sister Yuan Qing, you've gotten so pretty." No wonder a certain someone rushed over to pick you up right after getting off the plane instead of going home. "If I had a sister as pretty as you, I'd fly over to pick you up, too." Before he could finish speaking, Shintingsi hit him with a pillow. After everything that happened in my previous life, this was a rare chance to see him, so naturally I was overjoyed. We were both sitting in the back seat, and I turned to look at him. "Didn't Mom and Dad say you wouldn't be back for a few more days? How come you're back today?" Before Shintingsi could say a word, the classmate behind the wheel was already struggling to hold back his laughter so hard that his shoulders were shaking. Shintingsi shifted in his seat, looking a little uncomfortable. and said, "Didn't you tell me to come back early?" When did I tell him to come back early? I clearly said that day that I missed him. I suddenly paused. It had been over 2 years since we'd last seen each other, and the Shintingsi standing before me was the Shintingsi I knew. Yet there was something different about him. Outside the car window, traffic was bustling. Inside, he sat with his profile turned toward the road ahead. In the quiet, enclosed space, my heart suddenly began to race. I quietly turned back and pretended to be on my phone. But instead, I searched on my phone. After puberty, is it still possible to feel a strong, unexplained attraction to the opposite sex? As the family gathered together, my eyes welled up a little at the sight. Little did I know that Shintingsi would see me and get the wrong idea. After dinner, I went back to my room, and he knocked on my door. After getting my permission, he came in. He looked me over from head to toe for a while, then said, "Are you still upset about breaking up with that jerk?" I was sitting on the bay window, and Shintingsi was sitting at my desk. When our eyes met, my heart started racing for no apparent reason, so I looked away. No, Shintingsi, however, kept staring intently at me. "You don't dare look at me feeling guilty." Shintingsi looked a little upset. "What's so great about him? If we're breaking up, then let's just break up. I'm never going to date again. Men are all no good." I muttered. "You're a man, too." Shintingsi paused. "I'm different." Lin Yanhua contacted me again later through Gongyu. I immediately reposted it on my Moments. "Lin Yanhua and I have broken up. If anyone else tries to mediate, don't blame me if I block you as a friend." After that WeChat moment post, the world became peaceful. As for the Fong Li incident, Fong Li was the victim, but public opinion can be terrifying. Everyone is saying that Fong Li was raped by those drunks. Just as the rumors were running rampant, someone who had taken sick leave to see a doctor posted on their Moments, saying they had seen Fong Li undergoing an examination in the obstetrics department at the hospital. The photo that was released did indeed show Fong Li standing alone outside the obstetrics clinic. This WeChat moment post effectively confirmed the rumors that she had been raped. The department's former queen bee, who was once held in high esteem, has now become a pariah despised by everyone. As for Lin Yanhua, the drunk man he hit with a brick is reportedly now in a vegetative state. Lin Yanhua's parents hired a lawyer for him, claiming it was self-defense. But just at that critical moment, someone released another video showing Lin Yanhua hitting the drunk man with a brick. After the man collapsed to the ground, Lin struck him several more times with the brick. Once the video was released, this was no longer considered self-defense. In the end, Lin Yanhua was ordered to pay the drunk man a large sum of money and serve 3 years in prison. All the suffering I endured in my past life became his retribution. A full month after the incident, Fong Li returned to school. Our school is a top-tier university, and our degree carries a lot of weight. Since we're about to graduate, I don't think Fong Li would drop out either. But when she returned to school, she was met with all sorts of rumors and gossip. That day, while eating in the cafeteria, I saw her sitting there alone. Everyone around her was whispering, and she looked like she wanted to bury her face in her plate. Something similar happened in high school, too. Someone said that Fong Li was involved with a troublemaker from another school, so everyone shunned her. During PE class, when we were free to choose our own partners, no one picked her. Back then, I put an end to the rumors and firmly took her hand. But right now, all I want to do is watch from afar as she gets her comeuppance. Perhaps it was because they felt someone had gone too far. Fong Li suddenly lost control, stood up, threw her tray on the floor, and then cried out, "I wasn't raped by those drunks. They didn't even touch me." One of the guys teased, "Then what are you doing in the obstetrics department? Did you go there to get hemorrhoids removed?" Everyone burst out laughing. Fong Li screamed, "The child is Lin Yanhua's, not that drunkard's. I wasn't raped." As soon as those words were spoken, there was a moment of silence, followed by a wave of exclamations of "Holy crap!" coming from all around. Then everyone who knew about my relationship with Lin Yanhua quietly cast pitying glances my way. The corner of my mouth twitched slightly. I dated an ex. Why does it feel like I have a criminal record? Even the girl sitting across from me quietly passed me the chicken drumstick from her bowl. Have some more. You've worked hard. Later, Fong Li came to see me once. She wanted to borrow money for an abortion. She still looked as pitiful as ever, her eyes red-rimmed, as she appeared at the entrance to my apartment complex. As soon as he saw me carrying fruit from a distance, he ran over to help me carry it. I turned away to avoid him. Just say what you have to say. She didn't beat around the bush. Yuan. I know I really let you down by doing that with Lin Yanhua, but will you please forgive me this once? I'll never take anything from you again. My parents found out I'm pregnant and are ashamed of Methy won't let me come home. And they won't give me money for an abortion. You're the only one I can turn to now. The more I listened, the more it didn't sit right with me. So what you're saying is, my friend slept with my boyfriend and got pregnant, and now I'm supposed to pay for the abortion, right? She paused. But the next moment her eyes welled up with tears. Yuan. I'm so sorry. I'm begging you, just help me this once. I turned it down. And there's one more thing. I pulled a piece of paper out of my pocket and handed it to her. This is a list of the things you've taken from me over the years. I want you to return them all in perfect condition. If you can't, then I'll have no choice but to sue you. The items mentioned above, ranging from coats costing several thousand yuan to the handbag Shintingsi bought for me that cost over 10,000 yuan. She said she'd just borrow them for a while, but she never returned them. All told, it adds up to over 100,000. Fong Li comes from a poor family. Both her parents run street stalls. Lin Yanhua, on the other hand, comes from a well-off family. She previously used her body to climb the social ladder. And it's likely that Lin Yanhua spent a lot of money on her. But now that Lin Yanhua is in jail, there's no one left to clean up her mess. Fong Li took the piece of paper and looked at it, then stared at me in disbelief. Jiang Yuanqing, are you really going to go this far? I didn't know how to tell her that I'd been reborn, but I wanted to let her know in a different way. I looked at her and smiled slightly. You know, I had a dream. In the dream, I went to your birthday party, and I was the one who injured that drunk. Then, in court, you refused to testify on my behalf, so I ended up serving 3 years in prison, while you married Lin Yanhua and even had this child. Upon hearing this, Fong Li's expression changed, but she forced herself to remain calm. How could that be? There's no way I wouldn't testify on your behalf. We've known each other for many years, so I do know her fairly well. Over the past few days, she and Lin Yanhua must have wondered what would have happened if I had attended her birthday party, if I had been the one to injure that drunk man. She doesn't admit it, and I don't want to dwell on it too much. I turned around, still holding my things. You have 1 week to pay me back, or I'll start legal proceedings. After saying that, I ignored her desperate pleas and turned around and walked into the residential complex. Who would have thought that after taking just a few steps, the bag of fruit in my hand was snatched away? I thought it was Fong Li. So I turned around and threw a taekwondo move, but before I knew it, the other person bent down and hoisted me right up onto their shoulders. Only then did I recognize him. It was Shintingsi. He was carrying me on his shoulders while holding some fruit in one hand. And he seemed to be in a really good mood. What made you suddenly change your mind? Didn't you say before that you wanted to be best friends with her for the rest of your life? I guess Shintingsi must have heard all that just now. I just came right out and said, it's because of that dream. What else did you dream about? I dreamed that my parents were crying their hearts out because I was in jail. There's more. I dreamed about you again. I dreamed that you were crying your heart out, too. Shintingsi paused in his tracks. He set me down. And under the dim, soft glow of the streetlight, our eyes met. So, when you said you missed me that day, was it because you had this dream? It's not because of anything else. Perhaps it was the night breeze that felt too suggestive. Or perhaps it was the tenderness in his eyes. I actually sensed something else was going on. Just because I said, I miss you, He came back to the country early. As soon as he got off the plane, he didn't even go home, he just took his suitcase and went straight to my school. His classmates snickers, and the way he'd avert his gaze whenever I looked at him after puberty, perhaps because I had experienced life and death partings in a past life. I suddenly found myself feeling much braver at that moment. Chen Tingxi, do you think if I asked you out, my parents would break my legs? Jiang Yuan Qing. His expression suddenly changed, and he grew very serious. Who told you to say something like that? I was startled by his serious expression, and I looked at him cautiously. Why are you suddenly being so serious? I just realized out of the blue that I've had feelings for you all these years, but I always thought of you as my older brother. So I never let those thoughts get out of hand. If you think it's impossible, then I'll just stop liking you. Why are you being so mean? But to my surprise, he said, it's not enough for you to just like me a little, you have to really like me. Right now, we get along like family. But if we start dating and then break up because you don't like me anymore, we'll lose not only a lover but also our best family member. So you have to really like me. Really like it. Seeing me hesitate, he reached out and tapped my forehead. I'll give you some time to think it over. If you're sure, I'll talk to Mom and Dad. That night, after my parents had fallen asleep, I sneaked into Chen Tingxi's room. He was still sitting at his computer working. So I just sat down on his bed. I'd like to ask you a few things. Chen Tingxi had his back to me and was typing away at his computer. What's up? Back when you were a senior in high school, what happened between you and that upperclassman who gave me a love letter to pass on to you? I still remember that back then. I had some ulterior motives regarding Chen Tingxi, but everyone treated me like his own little sister. And quite a few upperclassmen even bribed me to pass along love letters for them. The one who left the deepest impression on me was the high school campus queen. Since she was an art student, she had long, curly hair and was as beautiful as a princess. Even standing next to her, Fong Li looked like a maid. I was deeply impressed, but to my surprise, Chen Tingxi just looked at me with a blank expression. Who? She's the school beauty with long, curly hair, and as pretty as someone of mixed heritage. I don't remember. I felt a secret sense of satisfaction, but I still shook my fist at him. If I find out you're lying to me, you're done for. After a while, I asked again. So when did you start liking me? I gradually grew to like it, he said. By the time I realized it, I already liked it a lot. I was actually quite satisfied with Chen Tingxi's answer. I was still hanging around in his room when, out of the blue, Chen Tingxi said, I suggest you head back home soon. Before, I treated you like a little sister. It was fine for you to sleep in my bed, but now that you've said you like me, men and women shouldn't be so close. I pursed my lips, walked to the door, and stuck my tongue out at him. Hypocrite. When the agreed-upon time came, Fong Li failed to return the items to me as promised. I figured as much. She's so vain, I bet she's already resold all the valuable things she took from me. She came running to me, begging me, but I stuck to my principles, spent a little money to hire a lawyer, and filed a lawsuit right away. Another half-month passed, and to everyone's surprise, Fong Li actually paid back all the money. I was just wondering about that when I overheard my classmates gossiping. They say Fong Li found a rich boyfriend. Apparently, he's quite old, has got a beer belly, a receding hairline, and a wife, but he didn't mind that Fong Li was carrying another man's child. And he even paid for her to have an abortion. So Fong Li ended up becoming his mistress. In my senior year, everyone started doing internships one after another, and I moved out of the dorm. Chen Tingxi and his friends founded a company that kept growing, so they ended up renting a villa outside the city, and he rarely went home. But when I moved out of the dorm, he still drove over to pick me up. Sitting in the passenger seat next to him, in late autumn, the ginkgo leaves on the street formed a carpet of golden yellow, and I turned around and took Chen Tingxi's hand. Chen Tingxi, I've made up my mind. I really like you. And I've wanted to be with you for a long time. He paused for a moment, then smiled at me. Okay. As for getting my parents on board, I'm confident Shintingsi can handle that for me. In my past life, I was rushing along and didn't realize that there was a truly wonderful person right by my side who had always loved me. In this life, I will never let go of his hand again.